do this properly. Hello, today I'm talking to Wes Markin, who is the author of DCI Yorke, was it, books?
DCI Yorke, yeah.
Yep, who lives in Yorkshire with his family and his new puppy. Hello, Wes, would you like to tell us about yourself and your journey to becoming a writer?
Okay, certainly. My name is Wes Markin, as you just said. I've been writing now for a fair few years, but only really sort of started out on this writing adventure maybe 2 years ago, in which I released a book that I'd written years before when I was living in a place called Salisbury, so not Yorkshire. So sorry to offend anyone from the north, because I am northern. While I was living in Salisbury, Wiltshire, I put together that book there, One Last Prayer for the Rays, starring DCI Michael Yorke. You know, a good soul, a good leader, who has to, you know, deal with quite a wayward bunch of detectives in solving crimes. So I put that together in Salisbury, and then moved up here to Knaresborough in Yorkshire, quite near Harrogate, around the corner. And then I put together his other 5 books since. So we've got just a few of them here. We've got The Repenting Serpent, Silence and Severance, Rise of the Rays, and another one which I don't have a copy of, and then this one which came out yesterday, Christmas with the Conduit. So that one there is a lovely Christmas novel which will warm all of your hearts. You know, it's got everything you could want on it: Christmas trees, you know, carol singers, mince pies, and serial killers. That will be a fantastic Christmas Day reading list. Okay, so that's my journey so far over the last 2 years. The journey is about to take me to a new series, which is going to start in April next year, in which one of the characters from these books set in Salisbury heads over to northern New England in Maine, and ends up on some interesting adventures in that part of the world. And that will be with you. The first book is called The Killing Pit, and that's going to be out in April. So thank you for having me, Donna. I hope you're well.
Thank you.
Okay.
So you were telling me before that we started that you're a teacher. So how do you fit in writing around teaching and your family?
Badly. But I think one of the things is, before having children, because now we've got 5 and 7-year-old, before having children, I wrote some adventures with DCI Yorke. The first 2 adventures, in fact, so The Repenting Serpent and One Last Prayer for the Rays. And then I had my 2 wonderful children and moved up to the north of England. Beautiful place, the north of England. So I moved up here to Knaresborough, and here I discovered self-independent publishing and thought, do you know what? I'll give this a whirl. And it was a fantastic decision that I made. I put One Last Prayer for the Rays out 2 years ago, and The Repenting Serpent out potentially about 3 or 4 months later after that. And yeah, really, you know, I've gone from being a sort of a 5-day-a-week teacher to a 3-day-a-week teacher. So I've dropped two working days to become a writer. So I'm a part-time writer and a part-time teacher, which suits me down to the ground because I love both of them massively. And I'm just very lucky, because I think when I wrote those books about 5-6 years ago, I just kind of wrote those books. And it was only once I had a conversation with somebody while I was in Knaresborough, and they said, have you considered using the Amazon KDP platform, putting those books out for people to read, that I actually went ahead, looked into it and did it, and managed to get just enough, not loads, but just enough success, maybe just enough fans to make it possible for me to drop 2 days of teaching to put out more of these horrible, gruesome, chilling books, which we all need in our lives, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Do you tell your students that you teach that you're a published author?
Well, interesting. They know, and they always seem to find out because people tell them. You know, people I work with, you know, I've got some of the people I work with, you know, that they are, you know, really supportive, you know, read what I write, enjoy what I write. You know, I didn't used to charge them, but now they seem happy to pay. So I, you know, obviously let them do that. But they do let it slip to the students. So you've got to be very careful with that though, because they are young, you know, and I don't want them to be reading the books. But to be quite honest with you, you spend that long trying to convince a teenager to read that if they actually picked up one of my books and read it, I'd probably end up congratulating them for actually reading something. Because quite often you can't get them off the phones, off the TV, or off a computer game to do any reading in the first place. So it's one of them in it. I don't want them reading my books because they're too gruesome. But I think if one did come to me and no one has yet and said, "I've read your book, sir," like, well done, you've read a book. Here's another one. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. More on that next time.
Yeah, I'll be interested to know.
Yeah.
When you wrote your first book, did you plan on writing a series?
Do you know what? Even before the Yorke books, I wrote other books. So I've always written. It's something, and I'm sure all the authors that you speak to on your show will say, you know, they've always written. It's always something you feel that you want to do, which is probably why. I don't think if you didn't want to do it, you couldn't write a book, could you? They take ages and they're exhausting. But I've always written. And I wrote a few other books over the years, some of which will never, ever, ever be seen by anyone, and will remain in the attic forever. But then I got to Yorke, and I thought, you know what, I want to write a crime thriller. I want to, you know, I'm into detectives, I'm into crime, I'm not into serial killers, but I watch programs and read books with serial killers in it and detectives and whatnot. So I thought, well, I'll put one together. So I put Yorke together, and the people that read it. But the problem was at that stage, I only gave it to people really close to me, and there were, you know, there was an equal mix of love and loathing, you know, because basically you weren't giving it to your target audience anyway. You know, you were giving it to friends, family. Some of them were the target audience, so the ones who love crime are like, yeah, dig this. The ones that don't like crime and prefer something a bit more cozy, obviously weren't the biggest fans. So I kind of just like let that time elapse, and I never really thought about it again till I then published them myself 2 years ago. And then I thought, you know what, I'll see where Yorke goes on his next chapter, and wrote the next book. And then before I knew it, I had this whole convoluted web of characters and backstories and plots and motivations, and then they just kind of wrote themselves a little bit. I think all the people that write to me about these books tell me their favourite character is an antagonist in it called Lacey Ray, who's almost like she's a female serial killer effectively. But she's more on the fringes of the story. She's more of a subplot. She's never the actual main villain that's been chased down. She kind of just gets involved here and there. And a lot of people seem to have taken to her like quite a lot. So I mean, I never set out with the intention of writing a series about her, and yet she's in the series. So I think quite often you just let things develop and let things move along how they're sort of destined to move along, maybe. I did feel enough was enough though with this last one. Not because it's finished or it feels finished, just because I think there's almost like there's other things happening elsewhere, and just to focus in one area just feels a little bit restricting. So I like I said, I have moved one of the characters into another totally different part of the world just to see where that takes me. I'm quite happy with where it's taken me in the first book. I mean, I don't know how many books are in this character in this saga, but I'm definitely enjoying this moment as we're speaking.
Awesome.
That answers your question. I was probably off on one there. Go on.
Would you consider writing in any other genres?
Yeah, I would. And I think, I've always, even before I started writing, I was always, it's publishing online. I was always like, oh, I'd love to be a writer that writes horror. I'd love to, potentially do a bit of sci-fi, I'd love to do a bit of supernatural. And I think one of the things is, I think at this stage, when you're writing, so I'm writing Yorke, you build up a readership and you know then that it's got legs, you know that what you're doing, you can go down to for example, I can go down to 3 days working as a teacher and use the other 2 days to write and still maintain my lifestyle or, bring up my 2 children kind of thing. So it's difficult then to suddenly switch genre, isn't it? Because you think, well, if I switch genre, all those people that like Yorke, I said fans are not fans of me, fans of Yorke, all these people like Yorke, they're gonna want to carry on reading about Yorke. So I wanted a change and I wanted a different atmosphere and I wanted a different feel to what I was writing. And this new spin-off is allowing me to do this because I've taken it into a small town in America. The atmosphere and the makeup of the town is very different to Salisbury. There's nothing supernatural in it, but there's more maybe of a spiritual element in the background because they have an Abenaki tribe there, and all different types of things like that going on that has allowed me to explore different avenues. But in terms of genres, yeah, I would like to try other genres, sci-fi, fantasy. I'd try all the genres, but it'd be about, if I was going to take that risk of having to build a new readership, I think I'd have to be in a position where I could take a break from this and take those chances, because I'd like to keep my 2 days writing at the moment because it's so good, because I'm just enjoying it so much.
Would you consider writing with any other authors?
Yeah, I would. And I have mentioned it to other authors, but nothing has come from it. I think potentially with what's happened with lockdown and COVID, those kind of discussions that may have happened or were happening probably haven't gone anywhere. I mean, I do know that with both, wasn't planning to write anything with Rob Ashman or Malcolm Hollandrake, but we're in discussions about having a launch party together for our latest books. This was potentially, this was like maybe 6 or 7 months ago. So I think it was when Rob was releasing Killing Pretties. I think I was released, I'm not sure if it was Dance with the Reaper at that time, and Malcolm was releasing final book, the last one he wrote in his Harrogate crime series, and we were going to do a joint release, but then of course it all went as everything did. So yeah, those kind of conversations I'd like to think would happen again. I mean, I know a few of the authors that I know have already been offered compilations of stories, which they've released. So, if someone approaches me to ask me to do something for that, that's something I'd be interested in potentially in the future. And then hopefully once we get back to normal, we can open those conversations again about potential joint stories. I mean, I've always had this great wanting to I'd love to write a story where you write a chapter and then somebody else writes the next chapter and you come back and you write, that kind of thing. And just see where this, not have a plan, just see where the story goes. Obviously at the end of it, you'd have to go back probably together and completely rewrite it because it'd be a mess. But you think there was some good ideas running through it because you bounced an idea off each other from chapter to chapter. And again, it's something that I might look into in the future and see if there's anyone stupid enough to take me up on that offer. But nobody's got any time, have they? Even though everyone's at home, nobody seems to have any time either, which is strange. But life, isn't it?
Yeah. Um, are you a big reader?
I
Do you ever
was
get to
still, yeah, still am in between writing books. I think I read something interesting actually, I was reading, it was on one of our forums. I think Tony posted something up there about how he doesn't read crime anymore because he doesn't want them to affect his storylines and doesn't want to start dragging in other people's ideas, which is actually quite similar. Is actually found myself, in between writing crime books, turning to other genres, um, you know, which I've tended to do now a little bit more. Like I like John Irving, some kind of maybe more literature writers and Margaret Atwood and things like that. So I've been turning my attention a little bit to those kind of books in my spare time at the moment. But I think reading in other genres helps you, to be honest. I think it helps you look at all sides of a character. I think quite often with crime, you tend to get stuck with stock characters. And what's nice about reading other genres and other literature, you can sort of spin around different characters and see different kinds of motivations that aren't all about, a drive to catch the enemy or the criminal, if you see what I mean. So yeah, I do think it helps you. But my reading, to be honest with you, compared to what it was before this, is minimal. I mean, I used to maybe read a book or two a week, potentially now a book or two every couple of months. So it does slow you down. It does slow you down, writing, definitely.
Are you hoping your kids are going to be big readers? Are you encouraging them?
I'm hoping so. It's been a bit of a struggle with the boy, to be honest. He doesn't, he's been very sort of slow in his reading development. I pushed and pushed and pushed it to the point where I've kept it motivating for him, but at the same time, I've been really sort of, persuasive. So I really wanted to read, and he is getting better. Well, what he's tending to do now is reading a lot of, he's 7 and he's reading a lot of comics. And that's quite similar to my trajectory when I was younger. If I think back, I was a very, very big comic reader when I was younger too. And it was only maybe 10 or 11 that I got in, and 12 potentially, that I got into books more. And I remember obviously reading Stephen King and Dean Koontz and things like that. I remember being at school, with the book under the desk while the teacher was teaching, reading the Stephen King book under the desk. I was reading It under the desk, which isn't a small book either. I don't know how I got away with that. And then there's a Dean Koontz book as well. I remember reading in one of my lessons. It just shows you the amount of attention that I was getting of the teacher at that time. They didn't notice I was reading the book under the desk. I think now, if I saw a student reading a book under the desk, I'd probably congratulate them, be happy about it. Because like I said, there seems to be a real sort of, there seems to be a lack, not as much reading going on as I would like in the generation. But it's something, I try and push, and, it's not like maybe as bad as I'm making it sound, but I just think there seems to be a lot of distractions now maybe that we didn't have as much of when we were younger. Yeah.
Yeah, the PlayStation 1 isn't quite up to this PlayStation 5, is it? The internet that we didn't have when we were young.
That did distract me quite a bit, to be fair. So there you go. There's the irony, isn't it, of being old and saying all the youth of today, because actually now you've just hit the nail on the head. I think I was pretty distracted by that machine at the time. But I'm sure I still read a lot. So I'm sticking to my guns and saying, I did read a lot. I'm sure I did.
Yeah. I mean, the internet, I didn't have the internet till I was in my teenage years, so I had to fill the time.
It would have been the same for me, I think.
Yeah.
Would have been the same. I'm pretty sure that internet and things like that was when I was first went away traveling when I was 20 or something, 21. Writing emails was still quite a new thing at that stage. So yeah.
Makes you feel about 100, doesn't it, when the kids are we're older than Google. We existed before the internet. My uni friends are all 20. So when I'm I was learning to drive before you were even born. So just them.
Well, it's good to have a lot of young friends, I guess. But, you know, mind you can't go out and have fun with them all, can you, at the moment?
No, they'd drink me under the table anyway, so probably best.
Well, they must be finding it hard. They must be finding it hard, because I don't remember being out of the pub when I was that age. So they must be struggling to stay in. It must be quite a tough time for them.
Yeah.
Social years. They'll get over it. It'll be back. They'll be back soon.
Yeah, that's it.
Sure,
Absolutely.
they'll make up for it next summer.
Yes, absolutely. So what does your writing day look like? Do you have music on? Do you have snacks?
No. I did. The first couple of books that I wrote prior to the Yorke books, I did used to write with music in the background, and I found that it did help me a little bit get atmosphere going in what I was writing. But now, because I do such long drives to and from work, potentially an hour each way, I play music then, and I listen to music then, and think about the storyline, and then I bring the storyline obviously to the table on my writing days, and I think that works better for me. Getting the atmosphere in my head, and then writing it in silence works better for me. Definitely faster. My writing day looks like: take the kids to school at 8:30, pick them up shortly. I'm going to have to pick them up shortly, by the way. I don't know how long we've got left. So I pick them up early. I drop them off early, pick them up shortly from now, and then just write in between. So it's usually about 6 hours. 6 hours with breaks and distractions, probably more like 5. So you're probably looking at take the dog for a walk as well. So yeah, probably about 5 hours a day. And then now 4 nights a week. And when I say nights, I mean about an hour and a half in the evening, maybe 4 nights a week. And then the rest of the time, just busy with everything else in life, you know, children and the other job. And yeah, so I've had to you do get faster though, the more you write. And I think the stage I'm at now is obviously, I'd like to think my writing was sharper now. When I write, it's sharper than it would have been, say, 10 years ago. So whereas I look back and read stuff that I wrote 10 years ago, and it's dreadful. I read what I wrote yesterday and it's still dreadful. But you can kind of see what you could maybe do to make it better a lot easier. When you look back at what you did 10 years ago, I look at it and think, I'd need to just start again. Whereas with the new stuff I write, I can look at it and go, well, okay, with an hour of work, I could maybe do something with that scene. Yeah, I think the pressure of putting a lot of books out is hard. I think you feel that you've got to people like your books. You feel like got to produce one 4 or 5 months later for those people that like it, that like the first one, and it can get quite tiring and can get quite intense. It used to be like authors would put a book out a year. I think we talked about this before, didn't we, Donna? Authors would put a book out a year. These days, I think a lot of authors tend to be putting 2, 3, 4 books out a year, and I think in order to stay in it, not be amongst it still.
Yeah.
It's I know some people are doing it. Some of the authors with the bigger publishing houses, they'll only do 1 book a year, won't they? But
yeah,
they tend to be a bit more established, I think. And I think when you're an independent writer, I think it's probably easy to slip away, as quickly as you appear, kind of thing. So
yeah,
there is a bit of pressure to write a bit more, I think, as an independent writer, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I've gone down to 3 days, like I said, so hopefully I can keep it going. We shall see.
You're a plotter or a pantser?
No, I plot, but it's flexible. It's flexible plotting. Like I have an A to B. I have I plot the rising tension, I plot my main storyline points, but then as I'm writing, things will change, things will adapt, and I find that the best way for me. Sometimes it can finish totally different to how you planned it. Sometimes it can finish exactly the same to how you planned it, but I do tend to have a system now that I follow for all my books, which is like 2 big pieces of paper, a line across it, and then just rising, like a rising tension graph kind of thing. There might be a few little drops in tension in terms of developing other ideas in the story, but generally there'll always be an overarching rise in tension towards the ending. And that seems to have served me well. Like I said, if it's not broken, don't fix it. A lot of people seem to like, what I tend to like doing with my stories is they tend to be quite convoluted. There tends to be a lot going on. There tends to be a lot of characters, and I like to present the reader with a system at the beginning of the book in which they think, how the hell is that all connected? How the hell is that going to work out? There's just no way all of that can unwrap itself. So in order for it to unwrap itself, there has to be a plan at the beginning, I think. But then sometimes the unwrapping can take different directions, and it may unwrap in a slightly different way, but it's got to have like it all messy at the beginning and all unwrapped at the end. As long as I've got that planned down, I can write the book, I think. Well, I have done so far. 7 I've done now, so if it's the 8th one, I'll let you know. If it stops working, I'll come back and I'll tell you. I don't want anyone taking that idea and it not working. Well,
it's interesting actually, because when I first started doing this, everyone was pantsers, and then the last few I've done, everyone's been plotting, so it's actually working out sort of 50-50.
I just think there's a lot of stress. If you don't plan it, I think it's quite stressful. I think one of the Yorke books, I had the flimsiest plan I've ever done. So I thought, well, do you know what? I'm just going to start here. It'll roughly end there, but I'm going to be very flimsy with the planning. And you find that you get a bit more stressed because you think, oh, is this ever going to work? Is this ever going to work? You're asking that question all the time. Whereas I think when you do the plotting of it, then you will feel more relaxed, calmer. You kind of can have a time frame of how long it's going to take. And I just think it's just better for your blood pressure. I do, but at the same time, I do see how just writing and just enjoying yourself is also nice as well. So, everyone's different, I guess.
Yeah. Do you hide any secret jokes or details in your books that only a few people would understand?
I don't think so, but what I do is I do bring in a bit of my own life into the story, and then people who know me will go, aha, that's you. So, for example, Yorke gets a new dog in Christmas with the Conduit, and that's his Christmas present. So there's a bit of a spoiler there. It's early on, he gets a new dog. That dog is the dog that I've got. It's a cockapoo called Rosie. So I'll drop in little things from my life, and people who read it, who know me, will go, right, okay, where's that's you, oh, that's you. So I do things like that. But as for jokes, I don't know. Jokes are a strange one, because quite often, I don't know with jokes. I write jokes into stories, and then when I do a rewrite, I often take them out because I think they just don't sound funny when I reread them. So I delete them. So if you read a first draft, it'd probably read like a stand-up comedy show that wasn't funny. And then by the second time, I kind of delete them all. So then I worry that there's not enough humour in it. But the reviews seem to suggest that I've got some dark humour. So I'm assuming that's happening naturally because I'm not doing it intentionally. But then I kind of see what they're saying. Like if they'll say, oh, this was darkly humorous, and I go, yeah, I guess it is darkly humorous, but I didn't really intend that. So I find that the natural humor probably works better, and you probably find that with a few authors. They'll probably say, like, the characters they've built will just have a dialogue, and if you try and force jokes in, I don't think it works. But then if you let the dialogue happen naturally. When you reread it again, you might think, oh, there's some sarcasm and wit there that's naturally come out of that character.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that is my answer. Okay.
If you were to invite 4 famous people to a dinner party, who would you invite?
4?
Yep.
You're only supposed to say 1?
No, 4.
No,
It was 3. Now it's 4.
Right. Okay. So let's go. Right. First of all, David Lynch, the film director, because he's incredible and I love all of his films. And growing up, I was obsessed with Twin Peaks, and I was obsessed with his surreal view of the world. I mean, the way he built up tension, his oddball characters, everything. Loved it. Still love him. Think he's brilliant. So he will come to my party because he's been a massive influence in my life. Who else would I bring to my party? Thing is, everyone says it. So if I say it, I just sound like everyone else. But you probably would bring Stephen King, wouldn't you? Because he's so good and he's done so much. And even the books that people don't like as much, they're still really good. They're still a cut above most people's. And at the end of the day, you know, the amount that man has produced is unbelievable. So he'd probably be there, although would he come because he'd be at everyone else's parties? But I don't know.
He'd be a busy man.
Okay, so the thing is, who now? So I'm thinking a musician. So I'm thinking favorite band growing up was probably Radiohead. Still probably is Radiohead just because I listen to all the old stuff all the time. So I might bring the singer Tom Yorke, who I'm sure from his lyrics would be an interesting conversation. And then I need a 4th one. I'm also conscious that they're all men now, and I don't just want to, you know, obviously you don't just want to bring men, do you? So can it be anyone in the world? Right, Donna, there you go. You're coming. You're there.
Oh, you're the first person to invite me.
There you go. So there we go. So we've got 4 people. 4 people.
Awesome. I'm there.
But it is still male dominated, isn't it? You've got me and 3, and then.
Yeah, that's fine. I know it doesn't bother me. I'd keep you all on your toes. It's fine.
Difficult because, yeah, it's not right. But then I suppose that's been brought up in the 80s and 90s. There just needs to be, you know, it's definitely better now, I think, in terms of diversity. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah.
Do you have any? Party.
Yeah, I'm there.
You can come. Yeah.
Do you have any strange? Lockdown. Yeah, I know. Oh, hopefully soon. Do you have any strange quirks or habits or I can't think yet.
Just what you say. Strange quirks or habits. I don't know. I mean, talk too much. Can't sit still. Just probably the usual. You know, often daydreaming all the time. Works and habits. I think that's it. I think I'm just probably just a bit of a disaster zone, maybe. Stay away. That party won't be organised that you come to. It'll be a mess. You'd have to come early and organise it for everyone.
That's fine. You assume that I'm organised. I don't know why you would assume that. That's not necessarily the case.
I think I always assume everyone's more organised than me, and probably I'm wrong. But when you're this badly organised, and you think everyone else is more organised, but actually they're not, are they?
Well, considering I told you that I didn't have questions ready because I didn't do them, so therefore we're winging it, shows you that I'm really not organised.
Well, don't worry.
Yes. No, actually, generally I am quite organised, but today I wasn't. And now I've forgotten what I was going to ask you next. Oh, can you tell us a strange fact about yourself?
I'm sure I've told you everything that's interesting about me.
Well, dig deep. I want to know.
Strange fact about myself. Okay, I lived in Southeast Asia for a little while when I was younger, 21, 22. Teaching English in the north of Thailand, a place called Chiang Mai. for about 3 years. So I learned to read Thai and speak a bit of Thai. So I'm not going to speak any now, so don't ask me to. But at the time, I could speak a different language. So I could speak a little bit of Thai. And that's interesting because most people will say, well, I can speak French, I can speak Spanish, I can't speak either of them, but I can speak a little bit of Thai. But I'm not going to do it now, because I'm just not doing it.
When we finish recording.
I can do a little bit. It's because it's been so long as well. You're going back like 18 years. It'd just be like painful to see that happen. but I could at the time. I think I'll say at the time I could. Really had to think on the spot for that one. Okay.
It's a good one. I like it.
Okay.
Because I'm conscious of the time, I think that will be all I'll ask you, except for how can we find out more about you and your books?
How? So you want to know how to find out more about me and my books?
Yeah.
Well, Facebook. So Wes Markin author at Facebook, or Markin Wes on Twitter. But what I do have on MailChimp, I mean, if you do sign up for my newsletter, I am extremely generous, and I'm giving away One Last Prayer for the Rays on Kindle and a short story from his younger years, so like a prequel, as it were, for free. So you can download those to your Kindle for free if you come on board with the newsletter. So I guess what I'll do is when you've published this video, I shall pop the link, attach it to the video, and you can click on there, give me your email, which sounds horrible these days, isn't it? Because you don't want to give anyone your email because you just get hit with that. I only email once a month, okay, I promise, only once a month. But you will get 2 free books if you come on board. And I think that's the best way, because at the end of the day, people, you know, every single writer, every single book's Marmite, isn't it? Some people like them, some people don't. As you know, not everyone's going to like every single book. Just have to look down any Amazon reviews of any book to see that. So try out a couple of books first if you like what I do. Jump on board, because there's 6, so there's 6 of them now to get through. And the people that are liking it, that have made this possible in terms of going down and writing to 3 days and writing more, you know, they really seem to like them. So, you know, thanks. I'm just really appreciative that somebody likes reading my stuff. So I'll give you that. I'll put that link on. I'll attach that link and away we go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
No, I've absolutely enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me on the show.